Hello, Mrs. Tanabe. I am Aiden. What was your life like before December 7th, 1941, and how did it change?
That's a good question. I was the last of 10 children of immigrant parents from Japan. They came to the island of Kauai, and we had several acres, about 20 some acres of pineapple fields. It's kind of a long story, because I was the last of 10 children. So before I was born, life was different because my papa came over from Japan, met my mother on the island of Kauai, fell in love with her. She was supposed to marry another man because they used to have what they called picture brides. But my father went to the pier on the island of Kauai to pick her up for her uncle who was living on the island of Kauai. Well, my father fell in love with my mother. So contrary to so many of the other Japanese people, early Japanese people who married just a picture, my father stole somebody else's picture bride, in other words. So it was a love marriage. I was very lucky because I had 4 sisters, myself, and my father would never do what the old Japanese used to do, arrange marriages for us. He let us marry the one we fell in love with.
How many siblings of yours are living?
There's only 2 sisters in their 90s, and I'm 87. My 2 sisters, they're wonderful people, but they are in care homes.
Did people in your school or community become racist after the bombing?
Like any other time, some did, some did not. But let's see, I mean, everybody was in shock to begin with. But being Japanese, we maybe were overly sensitive.
Did you see any airplanes or anything strange on that day?
No, because I was on the island of Kauai. So it was on a Sunday, December 7th. I was home. I'm the youngest of 10 children. 1941, I was 10 years old. And even on Sundays, we had to work on the pineapple because they got ripe, and we had to take them to the cannery on Monday before they would spoil. So I was home, but my brothers were in the fields. So on that Sunday, I was home practically alone with my mother and father.
Hello, Mrs. Tanabe, and my name is Gianni. And I have a question. Did you go to school after the bombing?
Sure did. Let's see, 1941, I was 9, 10 years old. I think I was about 3rd, 4th grade. We went to school in the country, mountains, barefoot. In Hawaii, you could go barefoot 365 days a year because we had no snow. And we had no shoes either because we didn't afford it. Japanese call it hadashi, barefoot. You should see the bottom of our feet. You could step on nail and you wouldn't get poked. I didn't have a pair of shoes until, for graduation, 8th grade. I think I wore my sister's shoes. And then to high school, we wore shoes. But before that, everybody was the same. Just about everybody went to school barefoot until freshman high school.
How did you handle the news of the bombing?
There's practically no way to handle it because it's out of your control, yeah? In 1941, I was only 10 years old. And at first, we didn't know what was going on, of course. It was a rainy day. My father and my brothers were out in the fields working. But when we realized, maybe even the following day, that it was Japan that had attacked Pearl Harbor, I cannot tell you how I wished that I was at least Chinese or Filipino. And that is why I'm telling you young people now to not let artificial things like race get in the way of your lives. We're all human beings. I don't know how long we have precious time, but I want you to know that I marched with Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson, and just remember, yeah, that if we're all human beings, if we don't learn to live together with today's weapons of mass destruction, we're all going to destroy ourselves anyway. So we might as well learn to live together, love each other, yeah, and help each other.
What's one big change in the daily lives of people after the bombing?
Well, we had air raid drills. We had to dig air raid shelters in our gardens and around our school buildings. We had drills, the sirens would go off and then we would run into the air raid shelters. Then food was rationed. And us Japanese, we eat a lot of rice. And our rice came from Japan in 100-pound bags, so we had to eat potatoes. And I love Irish potato, we used to call it. But we had to eat sweet potatoes because we didn't grow Irish potato. I love mashed potatoes, but we had to go through blackout. We had to put tar paper on our windows. Oh boy, we had to close the windows so we didn't have much fresh air. It was rough. If we wanted to open the windows, then we had to turn the lights out because it was all blackout.
How did your life change?
Life changed. Suddenly I was not, Japanese were always looked upon as the smartest ones in class, the hardest workers, honest and all that. Wow, suddenly we became sneaky Japs, yellow Japs. And that's why I feel for those who are stepped upon, like the Black people, like the Muslims now, anybody. Our country was founded because we wanted to get away from that kind of stuff in England, right? Then we come to America. And what do? We do the same thing to the Indians. We do the same thing to the Blacks. We cannot last that way. So let's all love each other and respect each other, okay?
Hi, Mrs. Tanabe. I'm Whitney. What are ways you tried to fit in after the bombing?
How did I try to fit in? Oh boy. Thank God again for my wonderful parents. We bought, even though as poor as we were pineapple farmers, we bought U.S. savings bonds. And in fact, in school, we studied hard so that we wouldn't, be thought of as ignorant. But as a kid, come to think of it, 10 years old, and I wanted so much not to be Japanese. I wished I had blonde hair, blue eyes. That was our description of an American, can you believe? But we had black hair, brown eyes, tan skin. I hated being Japanese. I almost wanted to ask my parents, why did you born me Japanese? That's how terrible racial prejudice is, and especially as a child. And I'm so glad that I had such wonderful, understanding parents who always reminded us human beings are human beings, and that we were American citizens. That was the other emphasis. America, we belonged here. This was our country, and our business in life was to be the best Americans we can by helping our country be the best it could be.
Hi, Mrs. Tanabe. I'm Zane. Do you know anyone who was removed to the camps?
The Buddhist priests were, but on the island of Kauai, I cannot think of other than the Buddhist priests. It was not like on the mainland where en masse they were put into camps. I just plead with you young people to read history, study from history. Of course, read the right history books because it depends on who writes it too, But I didn't learn until years later about the concentration. Some people call it internment, but they were concentration camps in the United States of America, where innocent Japanese, the whole family, babies, grandparents were put in. And then later on in life, I found out that they were the Buddhist priests, Japanese school teachers, for whatever foolish reason, were picked up and brought to camps. We had a camp, Honolulu, here in Honolulu, but also they were even taken all the way to the mainland. That's a horrible story.
Do you know what life was like in camps?
I almost feel like I know for two reasons. One is the way that we Japanese were treated, even where we lived outside of the camps. You don't know how much I wished that I had been born Chinese. Can you believe? You know, because we were Japs. Suddenly we were sneaky Japs because unfortunately Japan did not warn the United States, just came and attacked Pearl Harbor, right? And they called it a sneak attack. So suddenly we Japanese were not to be trusted. And you don't know how much I wished that I were at least Chinese. But you know, you cannot change your skin, yeah?
Like, is y'all still friends, like the people you was friends with before the bombing happened?
You mean some friends who turned against us because we were Japanese, or what are you talking about?
Have friends before the bombing, because after the bombing happened, a lot of people lost their lives. So is there still friends that you have that are alive?
Definitely. On my island of Kauai, as far as I know, there was no bombs fell on Kauai. It was in Pearl Harbor, which is on the island of Oahu. So, and I was only 10 years old. My friends were all the same age. The only people who died were our older brothers and sisters, older brothers especially, who fought in the famous 442nd and 100th Infantry, the Japanese Americans. They fought in Italy and France. I had one brother in France, one brother in Italy, and my niece's father was served when our country occupied the country of Japan, because we were all Americans. So, and then my brother in Italy, who fought in Italy, was wounded, came home in shock, and we were told, just give him a warm bath, don't ask him questions, shell shock, And my other brother, who fought in Italy and France, was fortunate enough to fall in love with a beautiful French girl, and they got married. Wonderful Clotilde Martin from Faux Pertinax in Nice. I never forgot her address. In fact, I went to her place years later after she was gone, and I looked up on the balcony where I could still see her picture. The picture they had taken before.
Hi, Mrs. Tanabe. It's me, Sandy again. Did you work at the pineapple plantation, and what was it like?
Well, I didn't work on the plantation because the plantations were owned by what we call the Big Five, and there were Caucasians from the mainland who were able to buy acres of land, and they hired people, immigrants mostly, from the Philippines, Japan, China, to work in the fields. And that was a plantation. My papa owned his own pineapple fields. Oh, we had about, I think at the most 20, 25 acres of pineapples. And if you know anything about pineapples, they're very prickly, The first crop, the thorns are not that bad. They're kind of soft. The second crop, they're quite thorny, and so we used to use gloves. But my papa had his own, we had acres, about 30 acres altogether. On the mainland, you have farms that are like 100 acres, but over here, 30 acres on an island, small island, is a big deal. I did also work for 2 summers in the cannery, pineapple cannery, where you the pineapple keeps coming down, and you just have to grab the pineapple and put them in the cans, you know. 4 ladies standing there and telling us, hurry up, get that pineapple before it goes down the tray, you know. So yeah, I worked in the prickly pineapple fields as a child because my father was a pineapple farmer. But I also worked in the cannery in the summertime, couple of summers.
Do you still eat pineapple?
Oh, definitely. You know why? Because we couldn't eat the pineapple we grew. Every one of them had to go to the cannery because we needed the money. The only ones we could eat was the one that a rat had eaten a little piece of it, you know. But actually, they were the best because those rats knew the sweet pineapples.
What's your favorite food to eat?
You know, the way I grew up, all we had for lunch every day was Vienna sausage and rice. So to this day, anything I can get my hand on, to tell you the truth, I don't have a favorite food. I know my favorite fruit when I was real little was an apple, because we don't grow apples in Hawaii. We grow pineapples, but not apples. And somehow the apples, you know, they had to come from the mainland. And to this day, I love that Jonathan apple, you know, the nice crispy one.
What is life like right now in Hawaii?
Oh, right now, life is wonderful. For me, at least, you know, I'm talking as an individual, because I hope you young ones realize that life is not easy. People have to go to work, people try to make a living, and parents especially are very concerned about their children. Most parents really want the best for their children, you know, because I'm a great grandma now, so I realize, but when I was little, I didn't realize that, to tell you the truth. And I'm sorry that I didn't appreciate my parents like I should have. I had the most wonderful parents who came from Japan with practically nothing, believed in the American dream. But the way to accomplish that dream was education. So although I was the last of 10 children, and my papa and mama could have used us in the pineapple fields, they were determined that every one of us would leave to the mainland, to go to mainland colleges, to become as much as possible, you know, professionals like nurses and teachers and so forth.
Okay, well that's it. It was nice meeting you.
That's nice meeting you too.
Goodbye, Mrs. Tanabe.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Love you.
Nice meeting you, Mrs. Tanabe.